Many, many years ago, I think at the time I was maybe 13 or 14 years old. I would venture this was probably 10 years ago at this time. I went over to a friend's house, my friend Jason, and I was with Jacob and David at the time, which were also two very close friends of mine. We were young, we liked playing lots of games, and we occasionally enjoyed going on sleepovers. My friend Jason would always like to host sleepovers at his house because his house was usually the destination where we would all be. He had a very large basement to himself, a nice big TV down there. It was a little old, but it got the job done. There was an Xbox, a bunch of mattresses so we could all play like WWE wrestling games, and it was ultimately a good time. We didn't really have a lot of money at the time, so we would always venture to go to his house, play some Xbox, play some games, play some cards, and go from there. One day, when we were all together, Jason, Jacob, David, and myself, we decided we would just have a sleepover. I don't know what day it was. It was maybe a Saturday or a Sunday, but I just know that there definitely wasn't school the next day. Could have even been on the summer for all I know. We did what we normally do. We spent our day on our computers. At the time, we were fortunate enough to have laptops, each of us having laptops at least. We played games like Maple Story. We played games like RuneScape, and then we just focused on doing our own thing, like watching YouTube videos and playing other little flash games on our own computers. It was always fun when dark approached. Nighttime was coming at a fast pace, and we would play games like Ex Mortis, another scary horror flash games that mass polluted the internet back in the day. We would even dab into YouTube, some scary pop videos, some paranormal videos, and anything that would really get our hearts going. Eventually, as I believe it was 11 p.m., it could have even been midnight at that point, Jason's sister came downstairs after she was with a friend. They went to go see a movie late that night, and it just so happened to be the new Paranormal Activity movie. It was the Paranormal Activity 1, the very first of the series, and at the time I knew nothing about the movie. She came downstairs saying that she couldn't sleep and that she was too scared to sleep. She was very young at the time too, maybe 16 or 17 years old at the time. I don't remember exactly. She couldn't sleep, she was frightened, and so she decided to chill with us for the rest of the night. But we were curious. We were wondering what this new Paranormal Activity movie was. We knew nothing about it, and if it really freaked her out so much, that piqued our curiosity. On the big screen, after plugging in the laptop via HDMI, we delved into it. We saw the YouTube video and some reaction videos, and we were like, whoa, what is this? Is this real? It looked so real. The effects looked old, rugged, like it was recorded, which is what the movie wanted it to look like at the time. It looked fantastic. It looked so authentic, and in a way, it actually did scare me. It began to build up anxiety in me. I was nervous, and usually when I get nervous, I start getting the butterflies in my stomach, and then it really made me question if I wanted to have a sleepover today. So after spending all this time looking at the Paranormal Activity movie, just a bit of common research on it, watching the trailers and whatnot, I kind of come to the conclusion that, oh damn, this is actually a really scary thing. Keep in mind, I was very young at the time and naive, and I would believe a lot of these things that would come across over the internet, especially if it looked as genuine and realistic as the movie had come out to be. After about an hour of just doing our own thing, it was probably around midnight or 1 a.m. at the time, we decided to call it a quits and go to bed. There were many mattresses scattered around the floors, so you'd kind of pick whichever one you want to sleep on. You'd be given blankets, a pillow, and then call it a night. The problem with me is, though, I have a very hard time falling asleep when I'm not falling asleep in my own bed. I'm not sure why this is, but if I'm not at home, in the comfort and security of my own home, I have a very hard time to come to peace, to come to terms with where I am and fall asleep. So you can imagine, I did not have a good night, especially when I had anxiety building up inside of me, the butterflies, and I was a little worried and scared given all the stuff that we saw in the night, whether it be all those games, those YouTube videos, and then the Paranormal Activity research. One thing I remember very, very vividly was in the middle of the night when I was lying in bed with my eyes open after giving up on trying to fall asleep and keeping my eyes shut. I just lied there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, hearing the snoring of some of my friends and the heavy breathing of others. I would always hear a banging. It was very consistent. There was a continuous interval every 4, 5, or 6 minutes. It was a very loud bang. It's like somebody dropped something very heavy from the very top of the house. It's like someone was doing a deadlift every 4 minutes. And it would be a very loud, aggressive bang. I would always wonder, what is that? And I would always try to zone in on the sound, trying to figure out what it is, what it could potentially be. And ultimately, this sound is what made it infinitely worse, infinitely harder for me to fall asleep at the time. I remember several times I wanted to go to the bathroom, but I was terrified to get up because I had no idea what the banging was, and I had no idea what was out there, if something was in fact out there. Jason's parents were home at the time. They were sleeping all the way upstairs, but knowing this also made me worry because can no one hear this? Am I the only one hearing this, or was I just hallucinating? To this day, I don't even know. Eventually, I mustered up the courage to get up and go to the bathroom because it was getting very frustrating holding it in, and I knew if I would hold it in any longer, then I would never fall asleep, period. I got up. Pitch black. You can't see anything. The window's completely covered with cardboard because there was no blinds at the time downstairs, so you can't see more than a couple of feet in front of you. Walking forwards, towards the left, there was a door kind of hugging the wall, so I make sure I don't walk into anything, especially a support beam in the middle of the room. I eventually get to the door, but I'm terrified because I don't know what's behind that door, if there is in fact something behind that door. There was no banging yet, and that's because I timed it. The moment I heard the last bang, a few seconds later I decided to muster up the courage and actually get up. I opened the door to the basement just to get out because I know the bathroom door is directly to the right once you exit the room. The problem is, to the left, when you exit the room, is a very long stairwell pointing upwards. And that's terrifying. I always imagine, what if I leave the room? I look to my left, up the very long, ominous stairwell, and then I just see somebody standing at the very top looking right at me. The moment I would leave the room, I know there would be a bit of light coming down from the stairwell because, of course, upstairs, all the windows aren't going to be blocked off by cardboard. There's a lot of natural moonlight that's going to be coming in and providing a bit of an ominous hue to the house. I didn't think much of it when I opened the door. I just said screw it and opened it. I really needed to go to the bathroom. First thing I did was look left, up the stairwell. There was no one there. It's perfect. Turned to my right towards the bathroom, and I just proceed to do my thing. What's hilarious, and what I remember to this day, was after using the bathroom, I felt a little nauseous, and that's probably because my anxiety was so high. I kept hearing this banging that was really bothering me and rising in my anxiety that I couldn't fall asleep, coupled with the fact that I was not in my own bed, so that really did not make anything a lot easier. Once I flushed and left the room, I opened the door to the bathroom. All was well until I heard the bang again, and it was so loud, it was so deep. I quickly ran out the bathroom door and proceeded to enter into the room where all my friends were housed. I closed the door behind me gently, not to wake anybody up, and rushed right into bed, putting the blanket right over me. I was so loud. What was that banging, and why is this banging happening? Can nobody else hear it? Is it just me? Scared, I kind of poked a little bit at my friend Dylan, asking him to wake up. After about 10 or 15 seconds of trying to get him to wake up, he got up and he's like, "What's going on? Like, is something the matter?" I asked him, "Do you hear a banging? Like every 4 or 5 minutes, you'd continuously hear this banging that's absolutely frustrating. It's just a very loud slam onto the floor every 4 or 5 minutes." He told me he couldn't hear a single thing. I asked him, "Hey, just keep tight. Wait 4 to 5 minutes. Just keep your eyes open and listen in. The problem is, after that, I just didn't hear anything anymore. I don't even know if Dylan was awake for the whole 4 or 5 minutes. He must have just fallen asleep to begin with, because I didn't really pay much attention to the state he was in anyways. It was a very long night. Dreadful, painful. I probably got 2 to 3 hours tops of sleep, if at all, actually. Morning couldn't have come at a slower pace than it had come for me. But by the time it reached about 6 a.m., enough was enough. I was exhausted mentally, physically, psychologically. Everyone was still sleeping, and I anticipated everybody would still continue to sleep until maybe 9 or 10 a.m. So I had a ways to go. So I decided to pull out my laptop and just lie there, watch YouTube videos. Happy stuff that would take my mind off of everything. I still felt a little nauseous. I had anxiety rushing right through my veins, but at the end of the day, we got through the night. Nothing terrible happened, but it was a very interesting night. I remember at the time I had one of the brand new iPhones. It might have been an iPhone 1 or an iPhone 2, I don't remember exactly. And there was an app on the App Store which allowed you to put ghosts in a photo. And so, being the young, funny guy I was back then, even though I still am, I took a picture of the stairwell and I cropped in a little light ghostly figure at the very top of the stairwell, and I showed my friends, and it freaked the hell out of them. They responded with, "Oh, is that real? That's terrifying. There's no way you saw that. That's impossible." Mind you, all this technology stuff was quite new at the time. The iPhone had recently come out. Apps were rarely known at the time. So if you come up with a photo with a nice crop of a fairly realistic ghost in it, it looked quite believable. Nobody could really come up with an explanation towards it. And the funny part about that is too, when I showed Jason's dad the photo, he didn't look visibly shocked. But weeks later, Jason told me that they got a priest to come over and spray the house with holy water. So I guess it really did scare them. But anyways, it wasn't too scary of a night, but it was very anxiety ridden. And not being able to tell what that banging was really bothered me. To this day, I don't know what it was. And a lot of people might make jokes about it given the parents were upstairs, but that was definitely not that. It was a very loud, aggressive slam every 4 to 5 minutes. Continuous, a consistent interval. What it was, I don't know. Was it all mental? Was it all in my head? Maybe. But at the end of the day, we survived the night. We had a decent night. We had fun with the friends. And then we saw the new Paranormal Activity movie, which, mind you, did in fact scare me.